Okay, we are going to try once again to get back into streaming my programming. I got back from vacation and started streaming yesterday, but unfortunately ran into some streaming issues. So I have my fingers crossed that today will actually work a little bit better. It remains to be seen if that will actually come to be. But I'll give it a try. So far, things seem, just a little bit better. Before I switch over and start showing my programming, I'm just going to double check something here. Okay. Things seem a little more promising today. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that things are working all right, and yeah, just kind of proceed as I was the other day. Okay, so today, what I intend to work on is before I do this, let me just go here. Okay. Perfect. All right, so let me pop this open here. Okay, so today's work will be in line with the new schedule idea I have, where I focus on a design project. And by design project, I don't mean digital design, like I don't mean websites, I don't mean stuff like that. I mean mechanical or furniture or physical objects, that sort of thing. I used to be pretty good at design. I did some industrial design work before, and I want to keep that muscle sharp. It's been sharp as I want to keep the design muscle strong. It's been a while, and my skills are, I feel like they're kind of wavering a little bit. So I can't only poke around with my library code. I also need to actually use it to produce some nice designs, which was kind of the idea I had wanted to start with anyway, back a month ago or so. So that does mean the thing I started with at the beginning of the month was a standing desk, and I'm just gonna force myself to do that one day a week. And then since tomorrow is a day off, I can consolidate and get things done much more quickly off stream as well. So the idea for today is to focus on design work a little bit. Now I'll still be using my code library, so writing functions and improving the code itself seems reasonable as a kind of goal, broadly speaking, but the intent is to actually use the library to produce a valid and useful design. So that will involve cleaning up this document I've got here, including figuring out a few things, like obviously getting rid of these documents or design bits that I'm not using. I also noticed something here. I attempted to, hey Bismonger, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. I noticed that the markdown thing here, I have an image tag thing in the instaparse thing. It turns out it's not working yet, so I want to see if maybe I can actually get this markdown image thing to work properly. Doing all right, Bizmonger? Glad to hear it. That's good. What's new and exciting on your end? So, let me see what I can do. Make any revelations? Nothing crazy new at this point. I was on vacation last week, and I was thinking about what kind of things I wanted to improve with doing my stream, and obviously becoming a better programmer, all that sort of stuff. So I realized, not specifically about improving my code, but I realized that I was starting to spin a little bit, you know. I wasn't finishing design work, nor was I really getting anywhere with improving my library at all. Kind of procrastinating. I had no direction. So I'm kind of trying to pick away at that a little bit. I have a new stream schedule where I have days off. So the idea is to not burn myself out, basically. So the revelation is mostly, I have to improve my focus and direction with things. And it's a slow process. It doesn't come necessarily immediately. So just gonna see what I can do, you know? But this document needs to be all cleaned up anyway. Cool. Oh, thanks. This is to immediately derail for a second. If I recall, you don't use Clojure, you use F#, I think, right? So this might not be the coolest thing for you to see, but yeah. This is a fun, someone else has a thing called the Clips plugin, and it actually will turn, if I, let's see here. Oh, what did I do? No. Okay. This little sample file here has these blocks of code in them. So if I save that and let this rebuild, oh, that's the wrong, let's see. I just wanted to show this off because it was cool to me. Now I don't know if there's anything your top function, map, filter, fold, choose. Your top functions. Oh, like you mean to say that map, filter, fold, and choose are the functions you use most regularly for functional programming? I use map tons, and I do love it. It's pretty great. Okay, let me see. Oh, I see. This is watching the wrong file. Let me see. Am I familiar with choose? No, actually, I am not. I'm not sure if there is a function just directly named choose. It doesn't look like it. Is it like, is it for branching? Is it like cond, like conditional stuff? That's my first guess. I don't actually know. Right, so before I get into just my design work today, just to finish my thought on this, choose will return a list, some maybe types into a list. Some maybe. Okay. So what do you have, like a situation that would be useful in? Nothing off the top of my head comes up. Should add it to my arsenal. Choose. F# has function choose. Is there equivalent ideas in Clojure? Use maybe types all the time. Is a maybe type, is that kind of related to, like, is it, now if I butcher this I apologize, is it like a wrapper over nil or potentially nillable things? Yeah? Okay. I thought so. I heard about that in, I think it was a Haskell talk that was talking about it. Some or none. You're interested in results that turn some or none. Okay. I think that Haskell has a has the concept of maybe built into it as well, right? Anyway, this is totally unrelated to that, but as I write little projects and documents and stuff here and there as I go, this plugin here creates interactive code blocks in pages, which I think is pretty neat because it can let you just mess around with code right in the document, and you can still just have it kind of built right into your into your markdown and stuff like that. So I just thought that was pretty neat, and these sorts of things I think will make an appearance as I write blog posts and stuff like that, because it's pretty cool. There, right? So all this code is just evaluated. It's not technically Clojure in the browser. It's Clojure script that's getting it. Like it's a Clojure script interpreter written in JavaScript that runs client side in the browser. So it's not like you're going to be running crazy big programs this way. But I think it's extremely neat for showcasing ideas and stuff like that. So I'm excited that I have that working as an example, and I hope to build out cool posts and stuff using that. So that I was trying to do more of this yesterday, but my stream went south pretty quick. Something was wrong with my internet connection, so I just wanted to yammer on about it for a moment. That's all. I thought it was cool. Some data, none. So I'm wondering, you're talking about some and maybe and whatnot. Since Clojure is, as you know, and as I know that you don't really care for, Clojure is dynamically typed, right? So I wonder if the concept of maybe ends up not being strictly speaking necessary or not in Clojure. I actually don't know. These are just thoughts off the top of my head. But anyway, let's see here. Okay, now today is a little bit of design work. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clean up this document because I started filling it with stuff that I don't need. So I'll clean that up a little bit, and then I'll get going from there. Hey Lumi, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So Biz, one thing I happen to know, how do I say it? No, never mind. I thought I had something substantial to add to it, but not really. A lot of the time when nils show up, you can just kind of pass them through functions and they will do nothing, or something like that. So in theory it doesn't matter all that much. Now in practice I can't speak to it too much. I'm sure there are tons of times where it's a problem, but I don't know. I do know there's something about I think in other Lisps, the empty list is defined as nil sometimes, but that's not the case in Clojure. Like the only thing that is nil itself, if I'm not mistaken, which I think is actually a difference between other things. But just joined at the end of that thought. Clojure has a different view on maybe. It's not the same as the typed functional programming abstraction, like optional, maybe, etc. Okay. Yeah, Lumi, you I'm sure will know more about it than I do actually. Biz, he's mentioned that he uses F#, so he likes statically typed functional programming languages, so every once in a while he brings up topics related to that unfortunately I just don't have a ton of experience with. So specifically Clojure has semantics of collapsing a tower of maybe. If you have a maybe type that is a union and not a container type, it's actually quite similar to the perspective of Clojure. Scala 3 actually has a whole discussion on it since they introduced unions in there. That's yet another set of topics that I can't comment much on now. I don't know enough about it, but that sounds pretty cool, I guess. Since I don't know enough about this stuff, I also can't imagine immediately a spot where these things show up as really useful concepts. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they are, but I just don't, I can't visualize them, The maybe type in Haskell is only almost the same as optionality. Oh man. Biz, Scala's not for you, it's not opinionated enough. Oh man. See, actually, that's kind of, that Bizmonger, that's funny that you say opinionated enough, because I know that Clojure and people like Rich Hickey, the creator, and other people who are heavily involved in Clojure have strong opinions as well. And it's just funny to me that the opinions are kind of the things that end up making the languages and the idioms diverge pretty significantly. That's just an interesting human aspect to it all, I guess, eh? The compiler enforces the practices. Yeah. Yeah, see, the thing about compilers enforcing practices is it's true and it matters when you work with other people, but it isn't the only thing that matters when you work with people, right? Like, and the question, I'm not providing an argument because I don't know, is the additional, quote unquote cost of working with that kind of a compiler worth the benefits versus all the other things you have to do to work with people anyway? That's a very weak statement, of course, I know, right? I have no skin in that game, so it's just a thought that popped into my head. Lumi, in theory it does, but what I really prefer is a language ecosystem that allows you to specify the practices precisely and have a pre-commit hook for some tests. And Biz, you agree with that, I guess, eh? Linting and testing aren't quite the same, though. Linting, I believe, is mostly, mostly. It's like for appearance, right? Yeah, style. That's a good way to put it. Anyway, I don't want to be the arbiter of which opinions are right and wrong, of course, right? Linter is a kind of test. I suppose you're right. I can see... Right, it's a test like on some different level, right? Architecture validation. Man, this is suddenly a much broader topic on the definitions of tests in general, I guess, eh? Or maybe I'm making too big of a deal out of it all. Right, so tests reduce risk, linter. Well, if tests definitionally reduce risk, then a linter would reduce the risk of people being annoyed at different code styles, right? Like you could use a linter to enforce the style rules of a particular approach, and then if someone's annoyed by it, you can just respond saying, hey, that's the rules the linter follows, deal with it, and then there's no risk of someone's opinions getting in the way. Now I'm yammering on. Just forget me. Just you guys talk amongst yourselves. I don't know what I'm talking about. Not true for property-based tests. Actually, Biz, I don't know if I'm not sure I understand what you mean there. Lumi points out that automated testing, it would just return true or some additional results. If not, property-based testing just kind of creates... Yeah. You guys feel free to talk amongst each other about this one. As long as you guys do your best to be kind to each other. I don't want things to go spiraling out of control. I'm going to turn myself to this for a minute and just clean up this document, since property-based testing and all that kind of stuff is, for my work today, out of my wheelhouse. So, but don't let me derail your conversation, of course. Okay, let me okay, there. Let's just get rid of that. Unit tests. Dimensions. Let's see here. I wonder if this will work the way I intend it to. Let's see if that is that actually rebuilding okay. Actually, now I forgot to watch that. Let's see here. I'm not talking because I'm actually just reading your guys' discussion for a minute. Idris? I'm derailing myself again. I want to see what Idris actually looks like for a second. Type-driven development. Type is the plan for a program. Compiler and type checker are the assistant. The more expressive the type is that we give up front, the more confidence we can have that the resulting program will be correct. I have a general question about this for a second. I've heard of the concept of, what is it? Like creating and defining your own algebra over a thing. Is that similar to types in any way? Metaprogramming abstractions. Like module systems. All right. For me, I don't want this to go. All this stuff is already zipping over my head for the day. It's just funny. None of the functional languages have good answers either in your experience. So is this like this I don't mean this to sound incendiary at all, but like are those oh, what's this? That's funny. Biz, the auto mod stopped that. I assume that's another language, right? I had a general question. I don't mean it to be incendiary, but like, yeah, F#, yeah. And coq, C-O-Q, I don't know if that's... Oh, F star. Oh, I see. Sorry, that's my bad. Sharp is a hashtag, I guess. Yeah, my question was, like, these type system problems and all of that, like, they're clearly hard problems to solve in general. Is it a worthwhile problem to solve in general? And if it is, which I assume it probably is, like, are there really... I don't know what I'm asking about that. Just never mind. I just wonder, like, how important of a problem is it to really, really solve in general, is the question I have. I'm not saying it's not important, I just don't know how important it is, you know? Does that make sense? Right? Like, because if people keep trying and keep failing, is that just because it's actually that important and that hard to do? Or is there something else about it that gets in the way? I'm talking about type systems and stuff like that. Of course, I have no clue, so. Okay. What am I doing? Okay. Aerospace engineering and pharma? I'm not sure what you mean. For safety? Are we getting into the realm of, like, provably correct programs? Is that kind of the thrust that people are heading toward? Wood glue? I don't know. Ultimately, what we want is a good Lisp language with type systems defined on the meta and macro level, and there's research being done on that. The production level implementations all have limitations. Oh, Lumi, I didn't realize you also used Racket. That's actually a language I haven't used myself. Not yet, anyway. Okay. I am just letting myself get all kinds of distracted today. That's my bad. Lumi, I'm not sure if you were tuned in when I was explaining that as I was on vacation, I was thinking through kind of the general direction I wanted to take with things. And I realized that through the month of June, having streamed every single day until the vacation, I was kind of unable to really focus, and unfortunately now I'm just being another example of not focusing all that much. But in general, my point is I was either half-heartedly working on the design thing and then trying to work on prototype stuff for a library, and I was pinging back and forth all the time and not really forcing myself to get anything done. So I've adjusted my streaming schedule, so I'm not streaming every day. I have kind of earmarked specific days for specific work. And the idea is, over time, I hope to be way more effective with my time for library work, for design work, and for specific learning and expansive work. Hopefully that makes... I hope that my theory is that if I stay consistent with those sets of improvements, I can get better at streaming, I can get better at programming, I can use offline time to plan things out way better, and just get better, more entertaining and useful results through my work sooner rather than later. Because I want to actually move forward with stuff, right? I can't sit and do the same thing every single day. So this is the first small step towards being better across multiple things, but gotta keep moving forward, I think. So the idea is today, Mondays are kind of, you work on the library on little improvements if I need anything. Tuesdays are specifically to work on a design project that I've got. In this case, I need to finish my standing desk design, and I'm gonna, like, Tuesdays are design stream days is the idea. And then Wednesday's a day off. Thursday, Friday, I have some other stuff. First filter pred xs is equal to f# choose because of nil punning. Nil punning, that was I've heard that before. I was trying to think of it earlier. But you're right here. First filter pred xs makes sense. Filter pred xs, yeah. There we go. Cool, thank you. All right, so okay. If you bolt the desk together, you can disassemble it for easier storage and moving later. So this text I don't need. Okay. Let's see here. Dimensions. Okay, I've got all kinds of random junk in here from testing and whatnot that I need to get rid of to clean this all up. Oh, this was a thing I realized, the markdown instaparse thing I have here. I have this. It's supposed to detect when you have images there, but it doesn't, so I'll either have to fix that off stream or figure out what's going on, which is fine, of course. I just have to do that. But that's not a big deal for right now. Okay. So let's just get rid of all this junk. So we're at we get some reasonable basis for an actual document. Okay. Let's get rid of the comment. See if that works. Oh boy, drank too much coffee today. I'll be right back. My bad. Let's see. All right. Let me see if there's errors happening here. Yeah, okay, so I messed something up. And that's this here, because I got rid of the box function, I guess, in... Okay, well that would be fine. I don't actually need this section anyway. Can get rid of that. So these are major dimensions. It'd be really cool to build a sort of a constraints and parameters or derived parameters section where, pardon me, where there's all the like any sub-dimensions are derived from the major ones in a viewable and changeable top-level sort of math equation or something, but that I might not even need, so okay, so I have too much prose that doesn't mean anything through here anyway. Okay, so actually this is now, I'm gonna test something out for a minute. It should work. At least I hope it does. Yeah, okay. So this is I have my iPad here and my pencil, and you can like stream your iPad screen to this is the QuickTime player, and I just have that in its own little window, or geez, there, it's in its own desktop or whatever, so I can theoretically use it as like a blackboard or whatever. I can show little designs. I have a little glove that I found too, and I just cut off the fingertips so so I could like draw and leave my wrist on there. It looks ridiculous, but it works quite well, so I'm pretty happy with that. So this standing desk, what am I even doing? If I look at the top of it, I kind of want it to just be this small thing anyway. One day I'll get this to work. So the global, T is the thickness of the plywood that I'm going to be using. I'm assuming I'll use a 1/2 inch. The width, 32, is here, which you'll see again in a minute. The depth is here, and then the height is going to be right. So if this is the top view, and then the front view is something like this, right? So this is 32. And the height, the global height variable, I think was 39.5. Everything's in inches. And it's going to look sort of like this. Now, I want to be able to make this thing all out of just a piece of plywood, and you could theoretically make it if you only have like a handsaw of some kind or something, maybe. That might be a needless restriction. I'm not sure yet, but I want it to be still so something that you can make cheaply, but still kind of looks nice. And the idea is it's just this sort of small thing that I'm going to put in my apartment corner anyway. So the major components are the legs, the shelf, where I want to be able to put a keyboard and mouse in there, and then have a spot where I could say put my iPad like that or whatever, and then everything hopefully attaches in a nice, fairly easy manner. So the thoughts I have related to that, if I clear this out, the idea I have is the legs themselves are going to be sort of so if this is the flat piece, you would yeah, you go like this. So you have a slot halfway through the width of that leg. So that's the front, and the top view of this is just like a thin piece. So then the tabletop itself would sit here. It would slot in, and then you would put down another piece kind of like this, right? So that would go down onto it, so it'd be a double layer thick top at the end of the day, but you would slot that over this to kind of lock this in place. This is kind of confusing just drawn out like this, but what it would mean is well, let's see. Oh, I just got an important message. I do need to respond to this for a moment. Let's see here. Just a very brief moment. One of my sisters, we're all in Canada, but she went to school and has a job in America. And today she was just traveling to get back into the States, and she made it successfully over the border, which was something we were all a little nervous about given the current global situation. She made it okay, totally fine. So just got that message, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. Yeah, that does remind me, anyone who's watching now, in the future, whatever, I do hope things are going relatively okay for you. It is kind of a crazy time out there, so I hope everyone's safe and doing okay, you know? Oh, Biz, you're going to Miami soon, still in Toronto? So I guess you'll be flying out there, eh? It's a little weird. I'm pretty sure you can fly into the States, yeah, but it's either not allowed or way harder to just drive over the border, which was so weird to me to hear. But yeah, I know traveling over the border is a bit weird in general at the moment, so I do hope that that works out okay for you, of course. I think it was a few weeks ago you were saying you were kind of looking forward to getting to the States again, right? Something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you're gonna be heading back to where you want to be soon. That's always good. Glad to hear that. Okay. Man, so my head is still not back in the game after vacation, unfortunately. It's always a little challenging. Okay, but so what I'm thinking through is the first part I want to design is this piece here. So it's the very top piece, okay? And what it's going to be actually is something basically like this, where these slots that are cut out are they'll be right here. So that should be pretty simple as the piece goes, right? It's just going to be, the only thing I need to decide is the dimensions for the leg itself. So I do know that it's 0.5 inches by let's call it a 2-inch piece. Maybe it has to be 3. Let's do 3. You'll need to return in a week, which may be difficult. Yeah, that is going to be tough, unfortunately. As far as I understand it, to be able to go back into the country, you need might be a strong word. You have to have a quarantine plan or something like that, where you say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, this is what I'm doing, this is how it's happening, and blah 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 blah. But they theoretically will let you back in. I don't know how that's gonna go. Fingers crossed for you, man. I hope it works out okay. Is that are you traveling for work related stuff or family or something like that? Family? Oh, nice. I'm assuming that you enjoy spending time with your family. Hopefully that's the case. I know I always do. If not, sorry for bringing it up. That would be my bad. For the most part. You know what? That's a very fair response. You know, I love my family, but they're certainly not the best to be around constantly. So, fair enough. Okay, so the first part I'm designing is this. Now I'm gonna head back into the code and see if I can actually make something kind of like that. So, let's switch back into code writing mode for a minute. I'm actually pretty happy that this Blackboard sort of thing works pretty well. I kind of really like being able to just zip over to a sketch pad and kind of talk over things as I'm doing it, you know, that for me is kind of a nice workflow. Hopefully I can make it all look and be really nice. It'd be even cooler. Let me see, actually. See, it'd be cool if there was like a nice way to overlay it on the same screen. See if there's a nice way to overlay iPad screen with main screen so that I don't know what I'm talking about. Would that look cool? I have no idea. Anyway, okay, so one of the first parts then that I want is okay, enough of this. Let's go up like this and delete those since they're commented out anyway. This is, don't need that. CAD view is this crappy bolt, which for the time being I can leave. This letter A business I don't need. So actually this oval I also don't need. Cylinder and gone. Rename it to hexagon because that's what it is. Right, so cylinder and hexagon, and you join those, and then you can make a bolt, example bolt. This letter A business was a test that I'm not using right now, so I can get rid of that. And the letter A sketch I can also get rid of because I don't need it. So CAD view work in progress. This whole section is, I can delete it, but I'll leave it in for the time being. So let me stub out the headings for the different design parts. So the legs here, I also don't need them actually. So, and in fact, let me just move that for a moment. Okay, so major dimensions there. Now we've got parts. Okay. The desk consists of only a few unique parts. So there will be the top, there will be the top, there will be the middle top. I don't know what you would call that. Well, okay, no, there will be the top, then there will be the shelf, and then there will be the legs. As far as I know, that's kind of the only three things, right? So to explain that again briefly, if I'm looking at the front, let me just do this, right? So the top is a piece of ply with slots in it. The shelf is some set of ply like this, probably with a thing like that. And then the legs themselves are something where you could make a cool shape if you wanted, like that, and not look like crap, which it currently does. So those are the three major things, right? And there will be 4 legs, not just 2, obviously. So we start with the top, then we do the shelf, and then we do the legs. That makes reasonable sense to me. So okay. All right, enough of this. Okay, so that's weird. There. Okay. So parts. We've got the leg design. Legs. Top. The top is quite simple. It has 4 slots that snugly trap the legs in place. This allows the whole desk to be held together by only a few bolts holding the top to the shelf components. Sure. Right, and then the shelf is the most substantial portion of the desk. It uses a tab slot construction to hold the legs and horizontal pieces together. Geez. It actually, it is quite hard to describe designs with only text. It's also quite hard to explain the logic of designs with only images. So that's a bit of a hint as to why I like the idea of using both prose and diagrams in one document. You kind of get the best of both worlds, right? You can explain your reasoning with text, and you can show what you mean with diagrams and hopefully 3D models and stuff, like this CAD view stuff. That's the idea, anyway. So if I use this block as a quick copy paste job here to build the top of the shelf, so figure here, instead of, it would be the desktop design, and top there. Right, so all right, let's go here, top sketch. We'll begin just by renaming a few things here. So you extrude the top sketch by the GT, which is global thickness. Perhaps there's a better way to, like a better naming convention that I haven't thought of yet, but for right now that shows up here, right, as this here. As an aside, it would be really cool live in the code. This doesn't work yet, but perhaps using the Clips plugin would be a starting point, right? And then I would just be able to do a Clips tag here. Little note for myself here, would it make more sense to use HTML style tags for my extensions in the stylo library? So not KL, instead KL, and then KL. That might make intuitive sense, I don't know. That's okay though. It's fairly easy to change a little later, I think. Okay, so next little thing to do, right, if I were to do this, just yeah, so if I save that actually just and then wait, I just want to I want to confirm to myself that that will work, and it's not, because leg sketch has been deleted. Yeah, really? Oh, right. This is top sketch here, and this here, leg, I'm not using that anymore. Top design there, save that. That worked. Okay, yeah, so it'd be really cool to have these here linked, like if I were to change this, right? And then it would redraw all of those in there. But as it is right now, this here, the Clips spot is evaluated client side on its own. It is not in any way linked to what happens in these executed tags, because these are all done when the document is being compiled, if you want to call it that, and then the result of those end up rendered in there. So this is completely static, this SVG, and this one. They don't link in any way to interactive elements like that. So I would have to build that in somehow, and that's eventually kind of a goal, but it's not for today. So I don't even know why I wrote it. I shouldn't clutter it up in there. Just kind of want to get this ball rolling. Okay, so I have to change this sketch now. So instead of any of these, I can do the very simple thing and start with a square Oh, what have I done? Is that what I want to delete? Let's get rid of those. Yeah. Yeah, that is right. Oh, that's right. This is in a markdown, so it won't know. I haven't set it up to use proper indenting and stuff like that, so I have to do it myself. Another little thing to fix. More things to fix than to work on directly. That's my bad. Okay. 0, 0. The next one will be global width 0, global width, global depth 0, global depth. So if I do that, right, then it should just be a rectangle that uses the global dimensions, basically. Am I looking at the right spot? Oh, that was my bad. Okay, so the first thing here, right, I have to, so the draw edges of the top is fine, right? I don't want to, actually, well, okay. Let's move 0, 0 and see how that looks. I believe that'll bump this like right to here, and it might look a little off. Well, it doesn't look bad. Okay, so that's the top. This does remind me, actually, it would be really nice to have, let me just check one thing. I do have draw annotations. I think I have something called arrow. Probably when refactoring fabric, chunk, and draw, make 2D/3D functions more explicit, functions clearer. Example, I always confuse the 3D move function and the 2D move function. Also, make function names clearer. No short forms. Example, line becomes line, and arrow becomes arrow. Because that's confusing, and I forget how I shorten the names anyway, so it ends up just wasting my own time. So the arrow takes two 2D points, A and B, just like that. So if I start at 0, 0 and I go to 10, 10, what does that look like? Will that work properly? Oh, this will cause an error because of that. Close that, and it should work again. I'm gonna get a thing of water. I shouldn't be long. Oh, look, and there's the arrow function, which is perfect. All right. So the reason I was checking the arrow thing is because I can use the arrow in conjunction with the label, which it takes text and then I have to, I went like this, so move to 1010 the level label, which has the dimension, or which can have any text, right? So that's that. So if I do that, that looks like junk. What happened? Okay. Well, it's there. It's just small. Okay. Is that a scale problem? Let's see. So I have the hard-coded scale value here. Forget why I did that. How do I want to do that? I can scale it like that. Let's try that. Scale. Let's try scale 3 times. Is that how that'll work? We'll see. That works. Is it too big? Let's try 2. Let's call that okay for the time being. Let's call that good. So let me let me briefly think about, well, okay, no, let me just go ahead. If I go to annotations here and do dim dimension, dimension's not, it wouldn't be something here, right? Yeah, good. That would be surprising to me if it were a core function already. Right, so if I define dimension, so actually I can use my little diagrammer for a minute here. So dimension has the general, imagine this is a piece, like a drawing that needs a dimension. It'll have lines like this, arrows like this, and a line like this, and then dimension itself could be like that. So I just want a function that if I give it this point and this point, draws this whole thing and puts a label there. Now it would be really cool to have it automatically calculate the dimension and display it automatically, but for the first pass I'm just gonna make the user, in this case me, just manually type in the dimension because I happen to know it. It would be way cooler. Actually, never mind, I could pass in the global def and have it put it in there. So technically that's still me manually providing the value for it, right? It'd be cooler eventually to have it discern it automatically, even to a, like, whatever the document's precision is, right? So if it calculates it itself and it has a floating point error like this, right, I would want it to automatically do 32 and then display however many decimal points after the fact. So anyway, my function, all I wanted to do is take this point, draw this vertical line and this one, the two arrows, and the label itself. So I'm just going to wrap that into kind of a simple little function that helps me do that. So AB label, AB text instead. We'll do it like that. That way you know that it's text. Right, so all I have to do is get a midpoint, right, which would be do I have a function that has that already? I don't remember. Nope. Midpoint AB. Actually, would bounding box center actually just work? Am I being super lazy? A little bit. Let's go. Oh, did I? Load file source. Draw.cljc, I think. Did I not? Oh. Right. we go. Okay, so now I'm in the namespace, bounding box center, right? Just takes a list of points. Imagine if the points themselves are 0, 0, and let's do 2, 0, so the result should be 1, 0. Yeah, so it already works. It's kind of okay. The bounding box of a line would be the line itself, so then it does imply that it'll give you the right value. A little messy, but I don't want to write another function at the moment, so we'll just go with it for now. So if I do bounding box center A, B, like that, gives me the midpoint. And you need the midpoint to be able to draw the label, which is just a move mid, the label that contains the text. Then all you do is an arrow and an arrow. You do 2 arrows. So one arrow has the first arrow has its starting point well, let's do it like this. We'll start at mid, and then we'll move to A. And this other arrow will start at mid and go to B. So this isn't going to look right yet, but it's a starting point for that function. Let me do that. If I go back to stylo.builder, so I'm in the right, oh wait, no, I'm going to find namespace there. Should be fine. Save that. Okay. Right, so now instead of the label and the arrow, let's go ahead and test that function, dimension. A, let's give A as 5, 5, and B as, well actually no, let's give it 1, 5, and dimension B will give it 11, 5, sure. And then the label is 10 inches. Okay, does that even work? Let me just make sure that that does. No. Okay. Oh, what? That's weird. That image occurs on the right hand side of your grammar but not on the left. I don't know why that's suddenly acting like that. I'm confused by that. But let me go over to the builder for a moment and pop this parser open here. Image is here. Oh, that's the org work in progress. Right, image is here. Image is here, which I actually don't need in the para. Oh, what? What happened? What? Well, that's not good. Did I delete it? I don't know what happened. That's weird. Okay, don't know what to do about that. Let's see. Let me go. Oh, okay, stuff got, it's right here, it's supposed to be here. I must have deleted something. Well, let's at least put this back in like this, right? So this was where this clob down was an example instaparse grammar that I found by Dano. It's got the Eclipse license on it. I didn't use the whole thing. Well, I don't know. Anyway, it was a basis that I started with and I'm modifying it. So that's why I can use this as a starting point for fixing this, I hope. Don't know how. So I must have, when I was scrolling up and collapsing something, I must have deleted a little section or something like that, which is not good. And that reminds me, set up git repo for stylo. Create stream branch, maybe, question mark. Right, so let me check if it worked. Okay, well, we're back in business. Right, so we have a dimension that theoretically worked but doesn't in actuality, and that is okay because I can fix it, I can work on it. Let me go to draw, annotations, dimension here. So it's only drawing the second one, or the it's only drawing this. If I pop them in a list, I think that could help. Yeah, okay, there we go. Right, I also have to the label has to also be scaled up, scale to label text. And now I have to think about okay, so there's two things. Let's do a mid and we'll do an offset is right, so well, let's start with the very easiest thing here. Draw a line, which will be the offset. Let's make it 1 as a start. Right, so a line, there will be one line that's, well, let's make it a minus O up to a O. That's one line. And the other line is almost the same, just with B minus O, BO, body odor. Nice. Dumb joke. Does that make sense? So obviously I need to change it, right? If it's, you want it to use the norm, or the normal vector times the magnitude of the offset, and then add, and then you'll get different points, and you want to offset along those points, right? Because I also did something wrong. Oh yeah. Save that. Okay. Wait a sec, why? Why aren't there lines? Oh. Well, well, of course, these don't make any sense, right? It has to be let's just do it this way instead. Right, I have to do line map minus onto AO. And map add AO. I think that'll work. A, B, B. All right. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Ooh, problem. See that? The arrow head is drawn beyond the point that you specify it on. That's an annoying thing. Well, okay. All right. We will just have to be fine with that. Well, let me do, instead of A here, let me do map minus, no, it'll be plus A, and you add on to it 0 and Y, and it's just going to move it over by 0.5 as a guess. Right, so this this shunting around of things manually is not my favorite thing to do. I don't like it. There's for sure better ways to handle it. Well, are there actually? Maybe you just you have to kind of just define it once this way, this sort of way, and then you can use the function kind of forever after that. Maybe. B. Let's do H dimension. We'll call it, because it is, I am writing this not generically, I'm writing it very specifically only for horizontal dimensions at the moment. Right? This isn't gonna translate nicely to, right, unless like I'm hard coding offsets and stuff. If I could write a normal vector function, which I could get from another thing. Anyway, let me just, pardon me, here, H dimension. There we go. Let's see if that, yep. Okay, we're on the right track. So let me see here. I'll make a note of it. I'm gonna only do, so I have the start, turn H dimension and V dimension into dimension function, which automatically calculates the dim value if not provided. Uses normal vector math to do offsets properly. And final thing, correctly centers the label. I may need to do average width of Verdana chars, or switch labels to a fixed width font. What I'm talking about there is just that the center point of the label as drawn is right where my cursor is there. What I would rather have, for the sake of the dimension, the dimension function, is that it calculates at least reasonably accurately the center point of the full text there. And that makes me wonder if there's a center option for text. Not really. Right? These are all, oops. Well, there's no nice way to center the text as far as I can tell. Well, okay, whatever. That's fine. That's a fix for later. Oops. A common use in CAD software is creating technical drawings. Dimensions are important. Write an example. Yeah. Oops. Showing an SVG DIMS implementation. Sure. That'll be a cool sort of blog post, I think. All right, last little thing here. Well, maybe not the last thing. Right, so what I actually can do, this offset has a vertical 1 offset. But what I would actually want is, I don't want the arrow centered on this, I want it closer to the top here. So I could do this, offset A, offset B. Offset A is that, offset B is 0 something different. Oof. Sorry, kind of cold all of a sudden. Offset A, offset B. Which, instead of doing that, I can just do this. Uh, 1.5. Zero 1.5. I would have done it wrong anyway, just realized. And then this will do 0, 1, and this will be 0, 1. See if that looks okay. Instead of 10 inches, what if I do this? Does that even look correct? Yeah, it actually kind of does. Oh, I did the offsets the wrong way, of course. Of course, of course, of course. And turns out I don't want it to be 1. I want it, let's do 0.75, 0.75, and this can still be 1.5. 1.5. Save it. That actually surprisingly looked okay, but I prefer writing it out like that. For handling default units. Pixels, inches, millimeters as default. See if this should be tied into the figure scaling functions. I don't think it should. All I'm saying here in my little note here is a dynamic var where I can bind it to, basically I can globally, well, maybe I don't even need a dynamic var, I could just kind of have a global default, right? So if I want a function that properly calculates the dimension here, I need it to know somehow what units it's measuring in, which if you're just passing in numbers, right, it could be pixels, it could be percent, it could be anything, it won't know with that, like it would need more context to know if it's millimeters or inches or whatever. And you don't want to just label a dimension with only a value and not its unit, because if you're handing that off to a machinist, they absolutely need to know what all the units are in. Now you could make the argument that what you should do instead is not label every single unit, but have a little note at the top or something that says all units, unless otherwise specified, all units are in blah inches. That's way easier, but that's potentially more confusing for the end reader. And if you're actually manufacturing stuff, you kind of want to make sure your drawings are correct as much as possible. So you can't just cross your fingers and hope that things are okay, right? I realize what I'm going to do here, instead of offsetting these arrows, well, maybe no, I take it back. Right, so mid, I have to actually move mid have to move it by map minus onto mid, and subtract in the x direction. I'm going to assume most dimensions are 2-digit things for now. No, that already breaks. Well, let me make okay. Mid label offset is, let's imagine that at 5 pixels for every character. If I count text, that's the label offset. But it'll probably not be that. Let's start with 1, right? And so you well, actually, let's even start it with half because I'm scaling it up. So, right, so if I do mid subtract label offset 0, messy. Maybe it'll work though. Let's try it. And I'll be back in a moment. Okay. So I noticed this rebuilt and it shunted that way over here. So the offset coefficient, to be more engineering-like, is obviously incorrect at the moment. So if I instead do this, right, we're closer to what I want. It isn't perfect. Let's do 2.125. Okay. Right, so that's the label offset. Now, the arrow, instead of being drawn from mid, this first arrow, I can draw it from mid minus two times the label offset. Well, let's just do minus label offset 0. So that's the first point. And then this second arrow, similarly, will be map plus mid label offset and 0. Right, so that's that arrow. Oh, of course I still have to workflow improvement, run. Okay, that's almost correct, which is nice. We'll just do times 1.5 for both of those. Right, a lot of magic numbers in here, a lot of hard-coded values, which is always easy to start with when you're kind of mocking it up, and then you can pull that out, make it better later. Workflow improvement, run the build function when the reason I think about that is so that I don't have to make a silly, like an unnecessary change here in order to see changes here. One thing I have to check now though is, does this still look correct if I add characters in? Right, it's close, that's the problem. It's not perfect, but let me just make the gap bigger so it's harder to see if there's a problem there. The other thing I could do, no, that won't really fix it. I was thinking I could kind of fake it by having a white rectangle drawn behind the text every time, but I'd have the same issue where I just have to figure out the dimension of that rectangle by the same logic. So I don't think I need to do that. Right, so clearly the estimation, it's not perfect because different characters have quite different widths. Like a decimal and the I both have very small widths, so it'll throw off the center point estimation of that string of text. But it's a very rough thing at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that, call that okay, because I imagine getting an exact center point for a string of text is actually harder than it might first appear, especially because it's not a fixed width font. So I don't want to mess around with font data at the moment. I don't even know where I would actually begin with that. So I'll leave it be. Right, so I have a horizontal dimension function, and I think if I do goofy stuff like this, let me just see what rotate does. If I rotate let's say 45 degrees 0 0, this thing, will that work? I can cheat my way to a vertical dimension by just rotating. Yeah, it's gonna be messy though. It would be better to have a vertical dimension thing. But before I go there, let me undo this. I don't need it at the moment. Right, let me instead do this. Nope, not what I wanted. Okay, right, so I've got move and that. Oh, I need to get rid of that. So both of these are inside the move, which is what I wanted. But instead of move 0 0, now, okay, what I have is this dimension is from 0 0 to the global width 0. And it should sit on, like, it should end up above here, I hope. I will find out. Right? And we'll move the whole thing. In fact, actually, let me zoom this out. Okay. Right, there's a top. And we'll move the whole drawing. Let's do 325. So that will move. I don't need to do that. I just need to move this. All right, let's see if that looks okay. All right, we're getting there. Now, the obvious issue is that the dimension is, in fact, directly on top of that point, right? So I could do this, which will move it, but I'd rather have the function do that for me. It's also not totally correct yet. So in fact, what I can do is open up this annotation, and if I go to H dimension here, I can transform A and B right away with A as map minus A, and you move it vertically by -2, and B map minus B 0 -2, and that'll shift both of those up by that amount automatically for me. So here I should be able to make it 0 again, which makes more sense to me because it's like you could dimension, you could draw a line and a dimension. Oh, it should be plus, not minus. Why did I? Oh, double negative, silly me. Right, so it's nicer when I make a generalized dimension function that can take 2 points. It'll be way nicer to have the exact same semantics that you can use to draw just a regular line, right? So you don't have to manually calculate any offsets or anything weird like that. The function should do that all on your behalf. So the only problem you might run into is you might have the dimension cut off if you're at the edge of the SVG viewport. But that is a problem not exclusive to dimensions, right, at all. It would be very normal that that happens. Okay, so that's the horizontal dimension, but in fact, the final thing here, I can actually do just this, string global width and inches there. And then H dimension is similar, but I have to make new magic, and that's the problem, right? It's hard coding a bunch of logic into this, and I don't like that because it's too much work and it's hard to maintain. So oh, 32, it did work. Perfect. So for the sake of just getting this particular drawing done, I will finish up the vertical dimension by switching all the magic around. And then later I'll make I think this would be kind of a neat blog post to make with this kind of stuff. Because I think I can do hiccup surely there's a anyway, this is a digression. It'd be cool to make a blog post that just has all of the functions in the post and actually renders out the dimension that you put on a line or something like that. That'd be fun as a post. So doing this the quote-unquote wrong way is fine. Right, okay, so this also plus okay, the label can still be moved to the midpoint. The line here is not this way but the other way. I think that makes sense. And the arrows will still be pretty much the same. Let's see what that looks like so that I'm not trying to draw in my head. I'll just use it and go from there. Right, so we have a vertical dimension now, which is the global depth. I mean this, and the here it's global depth 0 to global depth, no, sorry, global width 0, no, global width, global depth, no, global width 0, right? Global width, global depth, which should, I hope, draw it on this edge. Close that figure. V dimension doesn't exist. I think maybe I didn't tangle this in. All right, let's see if that works. All right. It works-ish. Obviously, this is not correct. So, that's pretty cool. Like, I mean, it looks hilarious. All right, let's fix it up, just to get it complete, right? No reason not to complete it. These arrow points, we'll start with the easy spot. This has to be plus, this has to be minus. Save that and have a look. That should at least move this arrowhead underneath here and this here, which is a step in the right direction. Oh, I'm moving things the wrong way, of course, so let me undo that. This has to be this way. And it does have to be minus. This one should be no, actually this one still has to be adding. This one should still be minus, I think. Okay. Oh wait, did I just add the wrong, did I just undo the change that I did? Nope, that should be fine. Losing my mind a little bit. Okay, step in the right direction. Right, now this, move the 0 here, and this, move the 0 here. Right, at this time it's pretty obvious that a more correct or a more useful way to make a dimension function is totally to have it calculate the midpoint, the normal vector, and the magnitude of offset all for you, because this is me manually shifting things around when you could just use matrix. You just use some matrix math to get it done for you. I just don't want to have heavy math in my library right now, and I don't want to think about math for the rest of the stream. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not doing it now. For this blog post here, annotating drawing dimensions, I will have it in there because it's obviously a better way to write the functions. So, okay. These lines here, I have to make this have to switch these around. 1.5 here. And these have to be 0.75. 75. Yeah? Yeah, is that right? I'll have a look. Okay, good. Now, last thing, rotate the label 90 degrees. So a little note here, thoughts. Create a low-level SVG API. This is the set of functions that are rather imperative. Create a set of higher level useful functions that are just combinations of the low level, in quotes, because it's not that low. Yeah. Create a set of higher level useful functions that are combinations of the low level SVG drawing functions. A good example of this is the dimension function. An example of this is line, path, polygon. Right. So potentially this low-level SVG thing, this sort of wrapper that I have over SVG, would be the only thing in the core, and then all these sort of higher level wrapped up things would be extensions. I don't know if that makes total sense, because the library I'm building is already pretty geared toward this kind of stuff. I would almost always include those extensions, so maybe they should just be there by default. I don't know yet. I do not know. Also, what problem am I solving? Talk about the motivation and ideas behind the stylo and forge libs. Demonstrate with examples where possible. For CAD design work. Keep CAD open and easy to share, distribute, version control, and fork, expand, pull into larger projects. This means highly useful / abstract language for CAD, solids, engineering, analysis, etc. But extremely useful in hobby and industry, export functionality. Example, compile to macros for Inventor and SolidWorks. Export step files as starting points. Okay, so that was a side thing, just had to get out of my brain. Last thing to do on the vertical dimension thing is rotate the label. That's all I have to do here, right here. Rotate 90 degrees from the 0, 0 point, this label. Will it work? We'll find out. Oof. Well, that's annoying. Well, okay, if I swap the scale and the rotate, will that make a difference? Oops, scale 2. Well, let's see. Did I miss it? Maybe it didn't do anything? Yeah, okay. Man, that's annoying. Well, what if I rotate it by the midpoint? Does that make sense? I don't think so. Oh, it won't. Right, so part of the issue. Yeah, that's way off. I don't need it. So 0, 0 is close to where it needs to be. But it's not totally accurate yet because I actually need to rotate it about the label offset a little bit. Let's try that. The other thing going through my mind is maybe it actually makes sense to keep it oriented horizontally so you can read that text without turning your paper, right? I don't know if I like it that way. In general, the text label stuff is complicated actually because sometimes again, I'm doing the thing where I'm expecting it to rebuild, but it won't rebuild. Yeah, the text label stuff is annoying because you have to move it all around so manually. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to call that good for now because it's in the correct-ish position, in the mostly right spot. It's a little low, actually, and that's because the label offset is not quite correct. It's not going to be estimated totally right, but for the sake of this, that's pretty good. I don't mind it, to be honest. Now that I've done that, let me close that whole transform spot, and let's have a look here, okay, at let me pull up the CAD view, see how I wrote that function. CAD view, wait, what? Where did I, right, this is a CAD view. I suppose there's an optional oh right, CAD view is defined in a different spot. Well, okay, that's fine for now. Let me just try CAD view, CAD dash view. Here. All it should take is top. Yeah? See if it works. Nope. Wrong number of args. Yeah, of course. Oh, of course, I need this. Scale 8. Let's go with that. Yeah, it does work. Sweet. Okay. Obviously, that I think I could do a desktop CAD view. I think I can do it that way, right? I pass a description string there, and the scale of this. Let's do 600 by 400. See if the scale of 8 still works. Oh, I did not properly build in a description thing here. Huh. Okay. I believe, did I put it in here as a container? That's almost good. The height's not good yet. 700. No, that's the wrong dimension. 500 is the height there. Quadrant figure, grid figure. Right. Oop. Description. Okay. So I have in the chunk one here, CAD view work in progress thing here, which does not currently, right, see I hard-coded the, yeah. So if I go like this, description, now this works. Desktop CAD view. There, and this one, example bolt, blot, bolt. There we go. That should work. Unless I didn't save this. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right, we're back in business. Right, so in general, as the flow of the document, I actually really like this idea. You have a dimension drawing of the features and stuff like that, and then you have sort of a generalized CAD view to get the visual idea of it all. Now what would be really neat is a auto dimension feature for the CAD view or something like that, which I might work on tonight and tomorrow. That would be really cool. But before I go there, I actually do need this draw edges recursive thing. Let me see if it actually works with a I'm just giving myself a little, okay, what I want to do is make a small thing here. Let's start it at 1, 1, an inch offset in 4, 1.5, no, 4, 1, and then 4, 1.5, yeah, 1, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1.5, 1, 1.5. What does that look like? I think it will be wrong because I don't think I am using the right, yeah, that's right. I've not, in this spot, I've done it in another piece of test code, situation where it allows multiple closed loops. So that's obviously not going to cut it. That is what I need it to be. Trying to recall join. The join function uses already extruded things. Yeah. Right, so let's also get rid of the let here because I'm not using it at the moment. And this goes here. Oop. Like this. Okay, so def top base def top cut 01 extrude top cut 01 sketch. Obviously this is not how I am actually going to do this. I'm just trying to see if I can make the drawing look right in the next couple of minutes, otherwise not. So, right, and then top as the join of those two, right? Is that how join blah blah? Join top base with top cut 01. Now obviously, like, I'm using the word join, right, which implies that you're adding pieces together, when what I actually want is a cut, right? So I don't have the idea of a cut yet, but since I'm only drawing edges, it looks right. So I'm cheating. But it worked, actually, which is pretty cool. What I can actually do is change this top cut sketch, and I can shift these all down by 1 to default spots. 3 0 3 0 0, and then here top cut is the extrude of that, and then I can join 4 top cuts, each that are move 3D move, right, in some direction, right? Just like here I have this move of the cylinder. Oh, that's another thing. Fix 2D, 3D functions inconsistent with args order. Example, move and move have wrong or have different position for what body gets moved. There, okay. And that is obviously a bad design, right? If you're just mixing things that would otherwise be the same idea around in your argument positioning, people aren't gonna like that. I don't even like that. I mess myself up all the time, so I have to switch that around because it's just not helpful. Right? So here, the only tricky thing is, no, never mind. It doesn't matter. I was thinking semantically what's nicer for a thread first or thread last macro, but versus writing it out yourself without the macro. And it doesn't actually matter because thread first and thread last are both, you just use either one according to the shape of the function. So I'm used to using thread first, but I could just as easily use thread last. It doesn't matter. Right, so move 3D of top cut, I have to move it 110. I think. Let's see if that looks the same. Error. Oh. Top cut sketch. Okay, looks like that's working. So now that I have that, I can actually just finish out this here. So there's a total of 4 legs for this, right? So by the logic of this, let me add a new global thing here. Def global leg width 3. By the way, this is just this leg design idea doesn't feel like it's going to be sturdy enough, right? Like if I were to make 4 tall legs that are only a ½ inch thick each, and they're only held in at the top piece and at the shelf piece, they're going to shift around like crazy. It's going to feel cheap. So I do need to reinforce the leg design with some kind of cross shape piece. That's like this is going to be too flimsy as currently depicted, but I have some ideas for that, and it'll still kind of look like this at the top. But what I can do now instead is, instead of 3 here, I could do global leg width and instead of 0.5 I can actually do global thickness here, and down here I can make the top here, I can put a little let in here, let offset be 1, and that's that. Let's pop it down there. Oop. Oop. Right, so this first one is O. The second one is going to be, right, so this one here is 1 in, 1 down. This one is going to be O for the vertical, and here it's going to actually be G width minus O minus GL width, I think. Likewise, the next one here is going to be negative G width O GL width and instead of the offset here, it's going to be O, it's going to be minus global depth and 2 times the global thickness. And I'm lazy, so instead of writing times 2, it's just going to be that whole business. And then the last one here, which is back, so this one is going to be here, the third one's going to be here, and then the final one's going to be back here, is going to be the regular offset here, and this is going to be minus GD, GT, GT. Wow, that was a horrible typing. Yeah. That's that. Will it work? Yeah. Something looks wrong. So it's offset. Oh, that's right. So this has to be 3 times, right? Let me see if that looks correct. Yeah. Yeah, that is right. So, as silly as that all looks, what's kind of cool, let me change this up here. Let me make this 1. The global width, let's make it 28, 24. And the global depth, let's make it only 16, right? And the leg width, let's make it 2. Hopefully, it should all just work and shrink. Okay, so things are almost correct, except I have a problem here, right? Where maybe maybe I was actually correct already here, and it just looked wrong at that zoom out level. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. 3 o'clock is pretty much going to be my stream end time, so I'm almost done. Let me make a final note for myself here, is when using draw edges, join looks the same as a cut. I do not have cut yet, and I need to make it as well. Create the ability to join and cut 2D shapes for sketch creation. Currently I have made sketches, extruded them to 3D, and joined at that stage. Create the 2D equivalent such that extruding the full sketch will result in the same shape. Right, so what I'm just writing to myself there is the little note that the way I made this, right, is by cheating. It is actually rendering 5 different boxes that just happen to look like one box with the cutouts, right? This here, here, and here, they're all, by the semantics of what I've drawn or written here, they're all solid objects that are just perfectly intersected, which is physically impossible. It just happens to look correct because I'm not drawing any of the faces. If I were to draw all the faces of this and colored the faces green, what I would want is this all to be green, and then, whoops, what I would want is this. Instead of this, let's see here. Right, so the current drawing looks like this. Right, if I were to, let's pick a big brush here. If I were to, without changing the join or cut function, fill in the face, it would fill it in like this. Right, it would completely cover up those other things because those are their own solids. What I want is this. Right, because they're cut away. So they don't exist on that face anymore. That's what I would want, and I can do that. It's a little more complicated. And the idea of a sketch, I haven't fully fleshed out in my code yet. I can, and I need to. So probably that's happening off stream because tomorrow's a day off for me, and I use that to work on my code behind the scenes. And Thursday and Friday are earmarked for other work, which I will have prepped and be ready to go with on those stream days. So the next time the library is shown and worked on should be next week, and I should hopefully have a better and better picture of how that all works. So I didn't need to fill that all in, you get the idea, but that is that. Okay, so there. That's how I'm feeling. I'm actually, so that's silly, but I am actually feeling pretty good. It's really nice to be back at this with a working internet connection after my vacation, doing my programming, doing some sketching and stuff, obviously. I'm happy that this works nicely to put on the stream. It's a fun way to do diagrams and stuff. And I'm happy that I'm actually cleaning this document up and getting something that actually looks like CAD work, right? Like it actually, though this is a little silly, it actually is the work I'm setting out to do with this library. Let me change these back. The leg width, let's make it 2.5. Right, so something's clearly incorrect about this. Looks pretty good, left for a while. Yeah, no worries, Lumi. I'm actually not sticking around for too much longer, but I'm actually really happy with progress. This is actually looking like CAD work, which is finally what I'm actually trying to accomplish, and may want to put a grid for debugging this. Actually, you know, I didn't say it out loud, but I actually had that exact thought for Yeah, for laid out properly. You're exactly right. When I was doing this offset here, I thought to myself, oh man, I should have a grid overlay thing, but I didn't even write it down. You're totally right though. Create a debugging grid, because this is obviously not what I expected, and that isn't great. But this kind of stuff here, like, it seems really silly, maybe it seems silly, but I'm happy that you can just go change your parameters here, right? Obviously, I might wanna make it more robust in some way. I don't know how to handle it yet, but you change your global parameters, right, for your design, and it pops into place. So I've obviously messed something up here, because it it's what did I do wrong here, other than not write this out properly? Anyway, that'll be for another, might be offsetting the wrong edge. Yeah, I'm not using a global atom because I was lazy. That's the real reason. That is what I mean by intending to wrap it up in a way better way. But since this is currently working by just basically any time there's code in the document, it does an eval, right? And then it renders it out. So it doesn't technically need an atom. Now, I fully intend to make it nicer, but that is the true real reason was I was lazy when I started it that way. That's all. But all I mean to say is there's technically no state in this document, right? It's you run the function, or you run the library over the document once, and then the side effect is it produces the rendered document. So you arguably don't need an atom to handle that. Now, it's probably not smart to just hand wave it away. But for the sake of having this work, right? Like, I didn't want to put this all into an atom and then everywhere I was using it, like, deref it or pull it out. It was just pure laziness. Anyway, I've been streaming for 3 hours now, and my intention is to, for the next bit, stream for only about that long. I have some other work to get to now as well, some cleanup. I have to get to the gym at some point. So, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate that. I am so happy to be back at this again. My vacation was awesome, and I am going to keep trying, keep working away, slowly get better at this kind of stuff, streaming and programming and design. And I'm really glad that people are around tuning in. That's really helpful. Have I shared stuff on GitHub yet? This library I'm going to be putting up today or tomorrow, the stylo thing here. Probably I'm going to put in a separate repo the work in progress documents. I don't know how exactly I'm going to organize it, but I have here the thing I was working on before I went on vacation was this silly random background generator thing. And I have that code in a repo. So that was the starting point. Take a look. Yeah. So from in the near future, I will be putting more and more of this stuff properly on GitHub. Yeah, and you're totally feel free to look at it or not or whatever you want. That's totally up to you. But yeah, it's all gonna be going up there. That's the plan. In the meantime, I'm gonna get going, working on some other stuff. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back. It's Tuesday, right? Yeah, so my new schedule, I won't be back tomorrow unless something really compels me to do it. But I'll be back Thursday and Friday yet. And then we'll take it from there, 1 week at a time. And that's all I've got to say. So I'm going to get going. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Hope everything is going well.